Hey, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday. This is Chad from Ascension Worship. It's been a while, but we're back because we've got something new and exciting. We just installed this. It's the Waves SoundGrid internal card for the Behringer Wing.
Hey, what do you say? Yes, it's that time again. It's Tech Tuesday.
So if you followed this channel for a while, you know for the past few years, we've been using the Behringer Wing as our console of choice for Ascension Collective, the band I travel with, and for a lot of the churches that we work with. And we've also, for the past few years, been using Waves SuperRack Performer, which has been something that we've been connecting through USB. It allows us to use Waves plugins on a laptop with our Behringer Wing just to add a little bit more control over our sound, especially when it comes to pitch correction, dynamic EQ, that kind of thing. It's been really awesome. And through USB, we've been able to get 48 in, 48 out, pretty low latency, low enough to where our band hasn't had any issues. But we just installed this. This is the internal sound card for the Behringer Wing, and this allows us to have more inputs and outputs, 64 ins and outs. We're connected through Cat5 instead of USB, so it's a little bit lower latency. But the really cool thing, one of the things I want to talk about today, is that now you have a SoundGrid network, meaning that you can connect more than just the one computer that you can connect through USB. You could connect, if you want, multiple computers, say maybe multiple channels of tracks coming through a tracks computer on stage. Maybe you want to hook up a keyboard that is running through a computer with Ableton or MainStage or Sunday Keys. Maybe you want to connect your Purpose Center computer directly in. You can do all this over Cat5 and not have to convert anything through a digital stage box. It's all a direct digital connection from one device to another. So there's some really cool things you can do with this. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a top to bottom run through on how to set up a basic network. So we're going to have the Behringer Wing. We're going to have a Mac Mini that's going to be running SuperRack Performer with 64 in, 64 out. And then we're also going to have a MacBook Pro that will be acting as a tracks computer that will be running 16 channels into our rig. For those of you who've watched the previous video where I do this through USB, some of this is going to be similar. So I will have chapter markers down below that you can check on if you want to skip around a little bit. But one thing I'll say right away is that anytime you're working with pretty intense routing like what we have here, it's best to think about your sound like water flowing through pipes. So you go out of one pipe into another, from one pipe to another. And that will really help you to visualize what you're doing as we go through this process. All right, so the first thing you need to do, obviously, is to connect your internal card into your Behringer Wing. Now, I'm not actually going to show all the steps for that in this video. I will put some links in the description of other videos that have done this for you in the interest of time and just to not reinvent the wheel. But I will say it was pretty easy. I'm not a super handy guy when it comes to that kind of thing, and I was able to do it. Basically, there are just 21 screws around the base of the wing. We've got one of the older generation wings. So for us, they were Phillips head screws, but apparently a lot of the newer wings use the Torx T10 screwdriver instead. So check yours out before you do this. Also, I have to say, technically this will void your warranty. Now, our wing is older. It already has the warranty run out on it. I went ahead and just did it myself, and it was easy enough to do. I don't know if this is the case on every wing, especially the newer ones, but there wasn't any kind of seal or anything that broke that would indicate that I had been inside there. So do with that with what you want. But if you feel uncomfortable doing it, go to an authorized retailer to do it, or buy a new wing with the card in there if you don't already have a wing. If you're watching this, trying to decide if you want to purchase one, do it and get the card because it is awesome. So that said, you can see on here, this is what the card looks like. It's very small. Once you crack open the wing, the hardest part is fitting this in there and kind of pulling it to you, especially on the older wings. It's kind of in the back right-hand corner, and it's kind of a tight fit. Supposedly in the newer wings, it's more centered. It's probably easier to do. Once you have everything connected and turned back on, you should see something like this where on your setup screen Under General, it will say the internal module is the WSG, that's the Waves SoundGrid. You'll also see over here on the right-hand side a network configuration that will default to saying switched. Now, what that means is that on the back of the console, you've got two Cat5 connections. Before installing your internal card, both of those were able to be used for connecting to a Wi-Fi router, so you could give remote control to yourself or to your band members. Once you have the card in there, they will still both do that, and they will give you access to the Waves SoundGrid network. Now, what I suggest doing is switching your network configuration to separated mode, which means that looking at the back of it, the one on the left will be your Wi-Fi connection for remote control, and the one on the right will be your connection to the SoundGrid network. I actually prefer this so that I just don't have more devices on that network, especially because it's going to be so vital to your sound. You really don't want anything that can kind of gum up the works and maybe cause some issues. Now, if you're doing a basic network where you're just connecting your mixer to a computer, then you can just simply go from this right output straight into your computer and you're good to go. In today's video, what we're going to be doing is connecting two computers. So in order to do that, you're going to go from this output into a gigabit switch like you see here. Now, this is what we're using in today's video. I think these are about $130 on Amazon at the time of this video. You do not need to spend $130 on yours necessarily. You can get something like this from TP-Link for about $13. I haven't used this one, but it should work. What you need is a gigabit switch, and ideally you want something that is not going to have any kind of energy-saving things in there that will shut off ports when they're not being used. So something like this should be perfectly fine for what we're doing today. Once you have everything physically connected, then you can start routing. We'll start with the wing going out into our network. So over here, we're going to go to routing. We're going to use this third button here that is our outputs. Our output group is going to be the WSG, the Waves SoundGrid Network. We'll click the first one here and the +1 auto so that everything is unlocked. Over here, your sources, we're going to start with AS50A. So for our band, we have 32, sometimes up to 48 things coming from the stage. What I want to do is I want to patch, at least to start with, everything that could possibly go into my board. I want to go in and out of the SoundGrid network. So starting with channel 1 here, we are just going to click all 48 of these. And I'm going to try to do this as quick as possible. It's a little bit slower on a laptop. Very, very exciting stuff. How's your day going? I'm fine, thank you. The horrors persist, but so do I. Okay. All right, and then once you have all 48 of those, we have 16 more outputs we can use. So what I like to do is go to my local ends. So you can see there's my microphone that I'm using today. If I were to connect any wireless mics, usually it would be back here. And then the last 8, I like to do my first 2 pairs of aux inputs. So one, we do a lot of summer camps and we get these terrible camp videos that need some help to, control some of the mid-range and that kind of thing. So aux 1 and 2 are usually like my per presenter feed. So that can be useful for that. Aux 3 and 4 are usually a, iPad or something, just playing background music. Now, you don't need to process that usually. Sometimes you do. But what I like to have that for, because I have so many ins and outs to work with, is it's really good when I come in before the band, I can just play some background music and then make sure that it's going through the network and that everything's working. I can mute it on Waves and I'll hear it mute in the house. And I'm like, okay, I know everything's good. So that's what I like to do for that. The last 4 outputs, I like to do my main mix. Partially because I'm doing a recording on this as well. So I'm not actually processing my main. I guess you could if you wanted to, but I don't do that. And then I like to do my live stream mix. So bus, and that's bus 16, left and right. And again, in a church situation, you might want to use some of the great mastering tools that are available from Waves for your live stream mix to give it a little bit more pizzazz online. Okay, so we have now routed everything that we want from the wing to our Waves SoundGrid network. Now we need to configure our network and get that going. So we are now looking over at my Mac Mini. I bought this for you guys for this video, and I just really wanted some new goodies. This is kind of a proof of concept this can work. This is the base model Mac Mini that is out right now. It's a 2024 model Mac Mini M4 with nothing else added to it. It is as stock as you can get, and it's awesome. It actually does better than my MacBook Pro that I used to use. It was $3,000 when I bought it. So, you know, whatever. But we're plugged directly into that. Again, we're going through a network switch, and that's plugged into the Mac Mini. When you go to set this up, you're going to need to download Waves Central, which is the program that they use to install your software and activate your licenses and all that. Within that, there are 2 programs you're going to need, and then, of course, whatever plugins you go with. First one you're going to need is obviously SuperRack Performer. SuperRack Performer, at the time of this video, is $99. It's worth every penny of it. But do be aware that it is the program that you're going to be interfacing with. It's a host for plugins, but it doesn't come with any plugins. So you are going to need to purchase or subscribe to Waves plugins or whatever else you want to use inside of this program. Now, full transparency, I have a Waves affiliate link. I'll put it in the subscription. If you want to purchase or subscribe to any plugins through that link, it helps me out a little bit. If not, that's cool too. If you don't want to use Waves plugins, you can now in SuperRack Performer use any VST3. Now, I would suggest Waves because they do a really good job of having some really low latency and just great sounding plugins, but whatever works for you. And I'll do some videos in the future of my go-to 5 plugins if you just want to purchase them outright instead of doing a yearly subscription. Whatever works best for you, there's a lot of options out there. All that said, you need to install SuperRack Performer, $99. The other thing that you need to install, and this is part of the reason why I'm doing this video, because this is not super well explained on any of the Waves documentation, is to do what we're doing today, you need to install SuperRack SoundGrid. Now, don't freak out. If you look at this online, you'll see that it normally costs $5.99. That's the version that you need if you're using this with a server. What we're doing is we're basically using a stripped down version of this. It's the free, that's right, free offline version. And what that means is that you can see on here, there's a lot of things that say NA on them. They don't actually operate. They would be there. You see it looks very similar to Performer. But what we're going to be using is the setup menu and the patch menu. Those are going to be active in this version for free. You're going to need to have this on any computer that you want on your SoundGrid network. So yeah, you can install that for free. It's kind of like, if you're familiar with Dante, it's like Dante Virtual Sound Card and Dante Controller put together into one application. So first thing we're going to need to do is start here. We're going to go into our setup menu, and we need to change our port to whatever your Ethernet connection is so that it can see the SoundGrid network of the card and get going. So you'll see that our link is going to change to up. Our speed is set to 1 gigabits per second. That's what you need. If for any reason it says something else like 100 megabits per second, then you have the wrong kind of switch or something's going on where it's not going to work if you don't have that right. So if you have these things, you're ready to go. First thing we need to do is go to our inventory. Again, this is in the setup menu and then inventory. And you need to put whatever devices that you're using. Right now, we've got just the Wing and this computer. So first thing I'm gonna do is click this top left plus icon, network devices, and hey, there's our Wing. And we got blue light, so that looks great. Then we're gonna do the next one, and there's DAW and my Mac Mini. And we got green lights, that's good. While you're in here, the down arrow on that, you're going to change your driver channels to 64. So you get 64 in and out, green light, good. And then you're also going to go to your network buffer size, and then it will probably default to being 288. Change it to 104. That's the lowest amount of latency you can get through the network. Okay. Once you've done that, we're going to go and do a one-to-one patch in and out of these different devices. So we'll go up here to patch. And again, this is like Dante Controller. Over here on the left, you have your from, And up here on the top right, you have your 2. So again, water flows from one pipe to another. So your sound goes from one device to another. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with going from the wing. We just routed everything to the card. So now the card is going to say, okay, anything coming from the wing is going to go to the Mac Mini. So on the from, we have the wing selected and the Mac Mini deselected. On the 2, we have the Mac Mini selected and the wing deselected. And you have this grid from 1 to 64. We're just going to put our mouse in the top left-hand corner, click and drag all the way down. And we now have a 1-to-1, 64 to 64, and everything in between patch. Now we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to go from the Mac Mini, so we select that and deselect the wing, to the wing and deselect the Mac Mini. And we're going to do the exact same thing, a 1-to-1 all the way down. And you are done with this program for right now. Now, you can't quit this program. You can minimize it. You can hide it. But if you quit it, it will shut down your network. Now, we're going to need to come back to this program in a little bit when we set up our laptop. So we can just kind of leave it alone for right now. There is a way to trick quit it that I'll show you a little bit later on. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so that's all good. We can now go to Performer. In Performer, again, it looks very similar. It is very similar. We're going to go up to Setup, Device, and we're going to click the Waves SoundGrid Network. Our buffer size is going to default to 256. We want that as low as you can go without getting pops and clicks. Now, on my MacBook Pro from 2018, 96 was the lowest I could go. On here, we can do 32 on this Mac Mini, and generally, assuming you don't have anything else open, that will work just fine. And that gives you, I think it was 3.8 milliseconds of latency. So really, really good. Let's see. The other thing in here, let's go while we're in the setup menu to settings. On startup session, you want to make sure that your last state is selected. So if you forget to save, it will open up to the same settings you had. Configuration should be set to 64, and you can probably leave everything else alone here for right now. Okay, so let's move on to our overview page. This is where all the interfacing is going to happen, and we need to bring in our channels. So up here in the top left, underneath rack 1, there's a little down arrow. Click on that guy, go almost all the way to the bottom, and click Auto Route All Racks, and hit OK. And now it has given us a 1-to-1 patch. Rack 1 is receiving and sending through outputs 1, and input 1. So if I go down here to 49 and up, you can see there's level on rack 49. If you remember correctly, rack 49 is where we are sending this microphone to. So we are sending level. We're not currently hearing it because we haven't received it into our wing yet. So let's go over to the wing. All right, we're back on the wing. Let's go to channel 1 here, and let's go to the inputs page. Now, if you're not familiar with how the input section of the wing works, you have a main and an alt, and you can switch between them. Main, we want to have that for our physical input. So in this case, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to local 1. And so now my microphone is coming through that. I'll be able to listen to it when I solo that channel. Alt, we're going to use to receive what's coming from our waves processing. So we'll go to WSG, and remember that was 49. There's 49, and we have that coming through. So I'm going to solo this. We're currently on main. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you are now hearing me directly through this microphone through channel 1. And if I click on Alt, now you're hearing it through waves. Now, you probably didn't hear any difference on your end. Maybe you heard a brief click at the most, but other than that, you wouldn't have heard any difference. Now, for me, as the vocalist, there is a slight change. It feels a little bit foggy, I guess you could say, because there's that tiny bit of latency that wasn't there before. Now, it's very, very low, and you'll get used to it really quick. But I'll show you in a moment. We want to do this for any kind of instrument channels. They won't feel that fogginess because they're not hearing their head resonate one way and then their ears resonate a different way because they're playing an instrument instead. So that said, what the audience is hearing would be what you're hearing right now. And just to prove that it's going through waves, again, here we are on Performer. and go down here to this mute button. Hey. Okay, so we know that our processing is going through Waves. Also, just for fun, this is one of my favorite things to do to like MC microphones, or sometimes to a worship leader doing rehearsal, is the vocal bender. Hey, Luke, I am your father. No, it isn't so. Trust your feelings. Okay. We're going to go back to main for a second. Okay, so that's really cool. You can do that, and there's very, very little latency, which is different than how it used to be. So that's really, really fun that you can do that kind of thing. All right, so again, you want to do this for all of your instrument channels, not necessarily for your vocals, but I want to show you another really cool thing on here. We're going to go to our setup menu, audio, and that main alt thing, you can do that globally for every channel that you want to do it on from this menu. So I'm going to click on this box here, and we're going to highlight, at least in this case, all of these channels, at least all 40 of them. And so now from here, you've got a master main alt switch. So we're currently in main, and now we're in alt. Ha 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 ha. And so you can do that from there, which is really handy. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to go to our vocal channel. Vocals, we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to make our main input our local in, just like we did before. But instead of doing main alt on this, what we want to do is we're going to set this input select to individual, meaning it will not be affected by that main switch that we just did. Because what you want to do for this is pay attention to where this little red dot here is. That is the tap point, meaning that any pre-fade mix, so your band's in-ear mixes on stage, will listen up until that point. So they're going to hear the gain, the gate, the EQ, and the compression, but they don't hear these two insert points, the fader or the panning. We're going to use that to our advantage, and we're going to use this insert that is right after that tap point, and that's where the waves processing is going to go just for our vocal channels. So what that means is that the people on stage will hear everything except for the waves processing. The people in the audience and the people listening to post-fade mixes like your live stream mix will hear your wing channel strip and then going into the waves processing. So they'll hear them both, just in a slightly different order. So we're going to go to our insert. We are going to turn that on. I'm going to use insert 16. And the file or effects type is going to be external. In here, our send, we're going to be sending to our Waves SoundGrid, just like we did before, but instead of sending the local in, which is what we're currently doing, so from 49, we're sending local 1, we're going to instead send our effect send, and then we're going to do 16 left. Okay, and then let's go back to our effect. We're going to make it mono, and the effects return is going to be coming from waves. So we'll go WSG 49. Okay, and that all looks good. So now, if you are listening to this in the audience, it's going to sound like this. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. But if you were listening to it through one of the in-ear mixes, like I've got ears 1 here, you can hear it doesn't actually change. It doesn't actually change any of the sound. They're hearing the original signal. So again, in the audience, you hear this, ha, 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 ha. In the ears, you hear this. So that's how you want to set that up for vocals. That will give them the best results, especially if you start using pitch correction. Because again, it's weird that you're singing one note that's maybe slightly flat, but in your ears, you're hearing it, sharper because it's in the right key. It will create a little bit of a chorusing effect in your ears. All right, so now that we have that set up, that's going to work for all your vocals and your instruments. That's all good. Now let me show you how you can set up a computer to be part of the network for sending tracks or keys or anything like that. So I have my laptop going right now. That's what you're seeing on the screen. And we are sending 16 channels of pink noise out of Studio One. It's not going anywhere yet, but it will be in a second. So just like we did on our other computers, you need to install SuperRack SoundGrid. And then just like on there, you're going to change your port to whatever is connected to the network. And then everything's good if you see link up and the speed at 1 gigabits per second. You do not need to do anything else. In fact, you can quit this program now and you'll be good to go. It will now be available on your inventory list. So going to, looking back at our SoundGrid program, we are going to set up an inventory and click the little plus sign, and look, there is my MacBook Pro. So we'll click on that guy, down arrow, and then I'm just going to tell it to only do 16 channels. Okay. And then we're going to go to our patch window. Now what I'm going to do, again, water flowing through pipes, we are going to be sending our 16 channels of tracks from my laptop into Performer. Performer will do any kind of, edits that it needs to do that, and then that will send with all the other audio into the wing. So what I'm going to do is select on my from, we're going to do the MacBook and deselect everything else, to the Mac Mini and deselect everything else. So you can see we've got 16 on this side and 64 over on this side. So I want to send output 1 of my laptop to start on, in this case, I'm going to do channel 33. So remember, we have 32 things we can plug in on stage, but the AS50 connection is 48. So we're going to use these last 16 for this. So starting at 33. There we go. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Just double checking myself there. There we go. Great. And then okay. All right. And then let's test that. So we are done with SuperRack SoundGrid for now. Again, you can hide it. You can minimize it. You cannot quit it. But the one thing you can do is if you go up to this Apple and force quit, you can force quit it. And then I'm not going to do it right now, but that will essentially quit it, but not affect your audio. You'll get a little warning next time you open it back up, but it won't really do anything bad to you. All right, so I've got Studio One open on my laptop. I've got 16 channels of pink noise going out 1 through 16. If we look over on SuperRack over in the Mac Mini, if I go to channels 33 through 48, you can see there is all of my random pink noise coming through. And if we look over on the wing, if we go to routing and sources and WSG, just to show you've got it all coming through here as well. And if I were to mute it on, say, SuperRack, for example, if I were to mute channel 33, you can see 33 cut out on the wing. So everything is routing through. So again, from the laptop to the network, which is going through the Mac Mini and then into the wing. And there you have it. We now have a basic Waves SoundGrid Network connected with a wing mixer, a Mac Mini that is running SuperRack Performer, and a MacBook Pro that is connected through the SoundGrid Network doing 16 channels of tracks. Very, very cool. I plan to do some more videos on this in the near future, but I would love to hear any questions that you have, any experiences you have with this. I've been really enjoying it so far. It's been relatively affordable. It's only been $200 for the card. Again, it was $100 for SuperRack Performer. It was free for the SoundGrid application. And then depending on what plugins you go with, currently I have the $250 a year Ultimate Bundle. Now that might not be something that you need to have for you personally. There are smaller options available, but it gives you literally everything. And they literally today came out with a new plugin. So they're constantly giving you more stuff with that bundle. But I've been loving it so far. I'd love to hear what you think. So give me your questions down below. And until next time, have a great week. Again, this is Chad from Ascension Worship. I hope this has been helpful for you and your team. Come back here every Tuesday for new information.